6 months ago, I hired a climbing coach to hopefully make me a better boulderer. And a few of you guys have been asking for a little bit more specifics into my actual training plan and schedule that I do every week. And so in this video, I'm gonna break down my day-to-day. I just wanna preface that I hired a coach who's a professional climbing coach. Any climbing advice and training advice should be taken from a professional. I'm not there yet, so take all of this with a grain of salt. This training plan was designed for me, focusing on a goal and also focusing on my body and my strengths and my weaknesses. So this training plan is not gonna work for everyone, or for most actually, so like specific exercises and stuff, that's gonna be more up to you in terms of, what your weaknesses are, what your goals are. But I can get into some more macro level stuff. Okay, so my goal was to become a stronger outdoor boulderer. I think, climbing on rock is super cool and super inspiring and fun, and I just want to be a more competent and better outdoor climber. But it can be hard to achieve that and get there without spending a lot of time on rock. So at the end of the day, the training plan could only do so much, because what I really needed to focus on was spending more time outside and more time working on rock climbs. My strengths when I came into this were my finger strength. I've always had quite strong fingers. I had decent arms in terms of biceps, triceps, forearm strength, stuff like that. My legs, I could do pistol squats and stuff, which was quite good for climbing. My flexibility wasn't bad, especially my hips. I had pretty good flexibility. And then lower back strength was pretty good. My weaknesses that the coaching should have addressed or wanted to address was shoulders. And shoulders become really important as you get into V10, 7C plus and above, because they become a weak point and something that can create breaks in the future and injury prone. So shoulders were an important one to train just at the grade range that I was at. And I also did have some issues in the past with shoulders. So this was something that we really wanted to focus on. Core and posture. I have a long spine, and so the climbing hunchback is I'm super prone for that, and would have had that without climbing anyway. So a lot of my exercises focus on strengthening my core and my back and pulling my rotator cuffs more backwards to try and compensate for that posture. And then my technique, my mental game, being scared and scared of heights, and then limited experience. Like I said, I hadn't climbed that much outside, so how are you gonna be a better outdoor climber if you haven't climbed enough outside? And I think one also important thing here is, I just want to reiterate this and emphasize this, that I don't think it's important, or I don't think a climber who has done a hard grade but just one or two of them is not as impressive as a climber who's done an easier grade but a full width of them. And so the goal of this has always been to just really increase the amount of volume that I have and the amount of sends that I have to my name, so that I can become just a better and more well-rounded rock climber. So now we can get into the actual specific schedule. So I've broken this up into how I used to train before coaching and how I do now with the schedule, just to help kind of visualize this a little bit more. And we're gonna start with the old. This worked really well. I mean, you can see on my channel, I managed to do some, get a high score on the 9C test a few times and even climb up to 8A outside. This did work. But what I would do is, I would climb and I'd rest. And then I'd, climb, rest, climb, rest. Occasionally you get a double day in there, somewhere in here. And this worked great. Maybe I'd have one or two, one maybe higher intensity finger training somewhere in the week. But basically I would just warm up my fingers on the board and then go climb in the gym. There wasn't any structure or intention to my schedule. And that was really fun and worked well, but I wanted to kind of push myself and start to build more and more. So this is why I sought out a climbing coach. And now I have a very different schedule, much more structured, and Like I've discussed in some of my videos around my coaching experience, you know, it was a really hard start because of like, you know, just your body adapting. It took a couple months for me to like, and also like not having actually trained before for climbing, you know, this was a lot of new stuff. The ideal goal was that I would be climbing outside, and my schedule was built around climbing outside like at least 2 days a week and even 3 days a week for my new schedule, but that doesn't work. That's not sustainable with, you know, gas money is expensive to go drive out, you know, work, life, studying, all types of things would get in the way. So like it doesn't always work. The weather doesn't work. The conditions aren't great. So like, but the focus of the goal was to climb outside as much as possible and spend less time in the gym. So just take that with a grain of salt. Tuesdays I climb, Thursdays I climb, Fridays I climb, and occasionally on Sunday I climb. On Tuesdays, or on Sundays I have max fingers. On Tuesdays I have max fingers. On Thursdays I have max fingers. And max fingers just meaning, you know, I'm spending, instead of like just warming up my fingers until they feel really solid and good, because I always warm up my fingers on the hangboard or with no hang lifts before I start climbing. But max fingers is more of like, you know, I'll have a lot more repetitions and maybe I'm spending like an hour doing a finger warm up instead of, you know, 20, 30 minutes. So these are my like purposeful finger training days, and you can check out one of my last videos to see kind of like more in depth on what I do during my fingers. On Tuesdays, if I couldn't go outside climbing, then it would be max bouldering on the spray wall. Max bouldering on the spray wall was just like setting 4 to 5 move boulders that were, each move is like absolutely limit. Like you're not supposed to be making like big links in the boulders, otherwise they're too hard. And I would have like, you know, only 3 minutes on and 4 minutes off, stuff like that. So that was max bouldering. On Thursdays, it kind of switched, you know, like my schedule has evolved over the last few months, but like I had on Thursdays, I would have, if I couldn't go outside because of whatever, family, weather, life, etc., I would have flash boulders. So like pick a flash grade, your hardest flash grade, whatever that may be. For me, that's usually around like anywhere from 7A to 7B, depending on the boulder and style. But then you pick that flash grade and then you like perfect the climb. So you probably climb it, you know, 3-4 times and it's really nice. And now I've been getting into a little bit more like endurance and like longer move boulders instead, but kind of that same concept. So max spray wall and then endurance if outside climbing doesn't pay off. For my strength training, it's on Mondays and on Fridays. And then there's just like a social climbing. So the Friday is more of like, if I feel like climbing with friends, then I can go do that. And that doesn't really have like much structure to it. And I should say that every single session that I go, other than Wednesday and Saturday, so Wednesday and Saturday, my only actual full rest days. And I just do like some stretching and a little bit of like core in the morning, but like those are like my rest days. Every session that I climb, I warm up my fingers or have a max finger session. And then on my every day that I climb, I also have like a few exercises, like strength training exercises, like whether that be like muscle ups or explosive pull-ups. Yeah, so I have like a few exercises that I'll do every day when I'm at the gym climbing, but then my strength training days are my big ones. So on my strength training days, on Monday, we focus on shoulders and core, mostly with a little bit of legs mixed in. And it's kind of like, you know, I focus on high repetition and very low weights. So it's nothing crazy. Like, you know, I'm the guy at the gym with like the, you know, 2 kilo weights, you know, so I'm not a gym bro in any way. It's very like casual, but it's a lot of mobility focused, posture focused, strengthening, you know, like the full body and incorporating movement. And then on Fridays, it's more pull focused. And so I'll do like weighted pull-ups on these days, and I'll do, you know, front lever training and stuff, because that's what I'm working on right now, and like wider pull-ups and, you know, like just shoulder work. So like this is more of the pull day and this is more of the press day. And that's kind of how it's split up when it comes to my strength training. Again, my exercises are not going to be that helpful to the majority of people because like they target like my specific weaknesses based on like my skeleton structure. So like it's not really gonna, like, I'm not gonna recommend any, and like, you know, there's great stuff, but just, you know, if you wanna take anything from this, you can take that, you know, push on one day, pull on another day, and, you know, try and focus on like higher repetition or like, you know, higher set count and lower weights, stuff like that. You know, it's focusing on mobility and making sure that all the muscles move the way they're supposed to and feel natural. And that's kind of the breakdown of my climbing schedule. And it took a while to adjust to this. Like the first 2 months were really heavy and I couldn't really like see the light at the end of the tunnel. I felt like destroyed every day, and like, you know, coming from like climbing, resting, climbing, resting, climbing, resting, to now like only having 2 rest days in a week was a big shock to the system. Like, you know, I had to like eat a whole extra meal a day for the first while to like, you know, acclimate to that new stress on the body. So it is something to pay attention to and take it seriously. And again, this is my schedule, and a few guys have been like more interested in like how it breaks down, but I want to like really emphasize that you should talk to a professional about like what works for you, and it's gonna be so efficient. And there's so many online resources nowadays too that like you can hire an online coach who just like builds a training plan for you, and that's gonna be awesome. That's gonna help so much. I hope you guys enjoyed that little breakdown of my training plan and a few of the little like specifics behind my coaching. If I missed anything, feel free to ask a question in the comments and I'll try and answer it as soon as possible. I can also do future videos to get even more in depth on certain areas that you're still confused about. I really hope this summed it up and made it like a little bit easier to kind of understand what I'm doing. I would also like to kind of like talk about, you know, my goals with outside and like what projects I'm working on. Maybe it could be fun to do like a breakdown of like my 27 Crags account and like look at like what I've climbed and what I want to do, and like, you know, my tick list and stuff like that. It would be interesting maybe, so let me know. And again, thank you guys for, you know, asking questions, challenging my videos when they're not good enough, and you know, like missing things. It's helpful for me because, you know, sometimes I get lost just trying to figure things out. So I'm still learning here, and I really appreciate all the continued support. And yeah, I really look forward to making more videos for you guys. So see you next time. Cheers.